Hello and welcome back to Doodles MD, where you get simplified medical information in relatable and applicable form. I am still your host, Folake Lawal, public health, board certified internal medicine and infectious diseases physician. Continuing today or this week on the Know Your Body series, we're going to be talking about the lymphatic system as a part of the immune system and additional functions that it serves. So what is the lymphatic system? The word lympha comes from a Latin word that just means fresh water, and that gives us an idea. So this is an organ system that is part of the immune system and also serves a complementary function to the circulatory system, and it consists of lymphatic vessels that carry the lymph nodes, lymphoid organs, and lymphoid tissue. And the vessels carry a clear fluid that is similar to plasma. Plasma is the filtrate from the blood when you separate the cells, and the liquid plasma is what you get. So it's similar to plasma, and it carries lymph back towards the heart for recirculation. Let's talk a bit about the functions of the lymphatic system and of course how it does this function. So before we get into the immune functions, let's talk about the circulatory function of it. It serves as an accessory drainage system for interstitial fluid from tissues. Now, what does that mean? The human blood, the adult human, has about 20 liters of blood circulating, right, that the heart pumps at each time. Now, in all of what you have, when that blood goes round through the body, remember we talked about the arteries carried down, they get to the capillaries that have the windows, and some of those nutrients, cells, they go back and forth through the windows of the capillary, and some of it comes back into the veins. And in the circulatory system, we talked about how the arteries are thick and muscular and they are able to pump with energy, but the veins are not. And to compensate for that, the veins have valves that prevent backflow because they don't have something that's squeezing them really. So now when cells, fluid, and all these things come out from the blood into the tissues, not all of it comes back. So of that 20 liters of blood, when the fluid comes out, about 3 liters is in the tissues at any given time, right? About 3 liters. Now that 3 liters, of course, as some is going in, another set is coming out. That 3 liters is what drains through the lymphatic system and is carried up through this accessory pathway up towards the heart to relieve the pressure somewhat from the venous system. The second function is supporting digestion. This lymphatic system is very amazing in that it serves as a special pathway for fats absorption in the gut. So in your small intestine, when bile acid works on fat and everything and it makes it absorbable, once the fat gets inside, it doesn't go into the blood itself because it's a highly concentrated fatty fluid. It probably would disrupt a lot of what is going on in the blood. So that goes through a separate channel, right? It goes through a separate channel into the heart, and then your body is able to now transport it to all the other places that it's needed. And also it transports some of it to the liver to be able for processing and metabolism there. So that's the second function, that's non-immunologic. Now the immunologic part or the immune system part of what it does, the third function is that this system, one, connects the lymphoid tissues. And we'll talk about what the lymphoid tissues are, the lymph node, the thymus, the bone marrow, all of that. It connects them. So when something is happening somewhere and they're about to raise an alarm or they're sending a message, it goes through the lymphatic vessel, it gets to the lymph nodes or it gets to the spleen, and they're able to recruit and send more messenger cells and all of that. That's the third function. The fourth function is that this lymph, which is the fluid, transports antigen-presenting cells. Remember, these are cells that we said have either captured, killed, processed pieces of antigen, which is protein from foreign bodies, and they're going to present it to the fighter cells, which are the lymphocytes, or they have this thing inside them and they're just protecting it from causing more harm till they get to the lymphocytes. That will now get activated and do all the other things that it needs to protect us. So they transport these cells from wherever something is happening, which is usually in the tissue. Imagine, you have an infection in your leg, and then the next thing you notice that you have this swelling in your groin, or maybe you have a boil on your face, and then you notice you have a swelling, or you do have a cough. Sometimes you have a cough, you have a cold, and you notice that, or a sore throat, especially the sore throat, and you notice that you might have like a small swelling or pain in your neck. The antigen presenting cells have taken signals from that infection or inflammation that you're having. They've taken it to the lymph nodes, which is a lymphoid tissue, and then you now start an immune response. Let's talk about the lymphoid organs. Now, the lymphoid organs, we have the primary and the secondary, and then there's a lot of other ones, but I'll stick to the primary and the secondary. The primary ones are the organs where the cells generate from, the precursor cells. And the first one is the bone marrow. That's where all these cells first come from the multipotent stem cell that we said, multipotential cells. And then we remember from the last episode, we talked about B cells and T cells, right? So these cells, the T cells, get their name from going to the thymus. So when the T cells are generated, the precursor cells, they travel to the thymus, and that's where they mature. The B cells are made first in the bone marrow, and then they stay there to mature a little bit before they now start circulating in the body, looking for antigens to respond to. Now, the second is the thymus. This thymus, like I said, even though it doesn't create cell, it is very, very important for T cells. Remember, we talked about that T cells are the ones that they do direct killing, and then they have the one that's kind of like the conductor of the orchestra that amplifies all the reactions from everybody, and it coordinates, which is the helper T cell. So when these T cells go from the bone marrow to the thymus, like 95% of them actually don't make it out. Now, why is that? These 95% are unable to differentiate between bad cells or bad stuff, foreign stuff, from the human stuff, right? They're not able to distinguish between you and other things. And that means they're like, no, we cannot have you because you're going to cause problems like autoimmune diseases, right? Where your body is literally attacking itself. So 95% of them don't make it out. Now, the 5% that make it now get matured, and they are trained in being able to equip themselves, and how the maturation to being able to be activated. So they have the capacity to recognize foreign things and distinguish between self. And then they now go to the secondary lymphoid organs, which we'll talk about next. So the secondary lymphoid organs, obviously, they're not the primary. They are kind of like the second line. And these are lymph nodes and the spleen, and I will show you. Now, these lymph nodes, we have them, in the neck, behind your ears. You have them down right by your throat. As you're coming down, you have them in your axilla. So if you've had like a boil or something somewhere, or an infection in your arm, you see that something swollen in your armpit, we have them deep inside the organs, around the organs, around the heart, the lungs, and, the blood, the gut, okay? And all the organs in the abdomen. So depending on what is swollen, we're like, okay, look at this side because this one drains this area. So look to that side for what the problem might be. And then, of course, we have them around the groin that drains the legs up, right? And these lymph nodes are where cells, they circulate. They it's like they're home. They're waiting there, and a little bit of them in batches, they will go out. You are batch one, you go out, you search for things to respond to, you come back. If you find anything, you come back, you work on it, boom, 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 boom. You expand, you divide, and you make more that can go and attack that stuff. While you are making more, another batch has gone out to find something that's problematic that they need to respond to. So that's the lymph node. The spleen is another organ which is secondary, and the spleen is responsible for aside immune function, where cells go there, they are homed there and they go out and come back for maturation and division. It also helps in removal of old red blood cells. So people who have what is it called, like sickle cell, or they have accidents that cause their spleen to rupture, we call them asplenic. These people have some amount of immune deficiency, so we call them relatively immunocompromised, because the spleen is very, very key to production of specific cells and specific removal agents of certain types of bacteria or certain types of viruses, and they're very prone and they cannot respond to some of these things. So we talk about like encapsulated bacteria like Haemophilus or Strep pneumoniae and things like that. They're very immune to that. Now, in talking about the other lymphoid tissues, we have them in a lot of places. And if we go from the head down, we'll think about things like the tonsils. So in some people, especially children, they have a lot of upper respiratory tract infection. You would see the tonsils, enlarge. If you have someone open up their mouth, and you look in the back, you see them right, sometimes they're swollen, sometimes they're red, or they just look normal. Deeper down, you have even some more, and we call them the Walde's ring. You don't need to bother about that. But there are lymphoid tissues that are embedded or very close to regular organs. So you have them, like I said, around the pharynx, which is the throat. You have them in layers of the lung mucosa. You have them in layers of the gut mucosa, which is called Peyer's patches, and they respond to all of these things. And these are important because, one, it helps to quickly respond to things that are happening in those areas, but also things can go wrong, right? Things can really go wrong, and there are cancers that can develop either from these organs and from the lymphoid tissue in these organs, like Burkitt's lymphoma. We call them, some of them, multoma, which is mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue. Some of them are organized, some of them are not. And this is important to know so that when things are going wrong, we're able to pay attention. When you're having swelling in parts of your body, you're having fever persistently, you're losing weight, these are things that are very concerning. And you really shouldn't wait before you see a health professional to see that. So that's it on this week, talking about the lymphatic system. Next episode, we're going to be talking about the hematologic system and all the other blood cells that we haven't talked about yet. Please make sure you subscribe to our channel, like the video, and share with your family and friends. Let us know your comments, what you're enjoying so far, what you'd like us to talk about. Till next time, I'm Falake Lawal on Doodles MD. Bye.